Hi, everybody. This is Irma Jennings, and today is Wednesday, the 18th of April. So today is 4/18/18. I think that there's something numerologically, connected to this. Anyway, I'm really, really happy to have Shelly on the call. Shelly has, I'm not quite sure how our paths crossed, other than you reached out to me. We had a private session about your bones, and then we continued that conversation since. Shelly has recently been certified in Lauren Fishman's program, but I want to read you a little bit about her bio because she's got quite a resume. So Shelly is an integrative health therapist and has been in the wellness field for over 35 years. So that makes you like 36, right? Her combined experience is as a New York State licensed massage therapist, and brings her that whole level of knowledge about touch because of that. She's a certified yoga teacher and a certified yoga therapist. I don't know what IAYT is.
It's
Iyengar or no?
No, it's the Association of Yoga Therapy. There's a special certification and protocol just to be a yoga
therapist. So from those that don't know, there's a yoga teacher and then a yoga therapist. And the yoga therapist is quite in the know about the body and how it moves. A certified health coach, so she went to the same school as I did with Vicki, and that enables her to look through a unique lens with her heart and wisdom. She has over 250 hours of training in meditation as well. Her most relevant training as a yoga for osteoporosis therapist is both a personal and a professional accomplishment. Diagnosed with severe osteoporosis, Shelly Zagor. Am I pronouncing your last name right? Zagor.
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 Yes.
Zagor. Sort of like, okay, right. Not sort of like the deli, right on the west side, but not quite. Has poured herself into learning how to have a fulfilling, enlightened, and powerful practice. Yoga truly is for everyone, is essential for those of us with osteoporosis. So Shelly is a New Yorker like myself. So, and let me just see if Caroline is not on the call. Okay, but Gail is here. Welcome, Gail. Welcome, Catherine. Welcome, Peg. Welcome, Lynn. And Denise, of course. And Vicki seems like he's back on here. So Catherine can only be with us till 12:45. All right, so let's get going. So now you're going to do a sheet. I'm just going to let you take it from here. How about that, Shelly?
That sounds great. Hello, everyone. Well, thank you, Irma, for inviting me. I was so jumping up and down after you called me a few months ago because, this is definitely something that, as you mentioned, and I wrote, is very near and dear to me. And I'm going to give a little bit of history of who I am, just, for a few moments, just so you get a sense of, because I think it's important just in the context of what I do and how I help people, and why I'm such a nerd about this stuff. And I have a PowerPoint which Irma's going to help me with because I've never done it before, but yesterday we worked through it. I know, I can't believe I like this morning. Okay, so it was all there. I just had to put it all together. And if you have burning questions, please ask. Otherwise, we'll try to hold the questions till the end, if possible, just because it's, so I can try to get in. Because sometimes the questions, of course, get answered along the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
But before we go on, I have a hard stop at 1, and I know somebody else, Catherine just mentioned, she's getting off at 12:45. So just to be vigilant of the time.
Say again?
Just to be aware of the time.
Oh, I will be. Okay, so does she have any burning questions?
Catherine, do you have any burning questions? If you do, you can enter them into the chat box or the Q&A. So we'll wait to hear from her to see if she does.
Yeah, so that's fine. Yeah, I mean, the way I see this being, what we're going to do is talk a little bit about yoga, why it's important, a little bit of my journey. We'll go through the poses a little. There's so much to talk about, really. And I mean, it is obviously, yoga is a very big subject. And, it's sort of like a two-part thing. So, I've been certified in the book, so Yoga for Osteoporosis by Lauren Fishman. And, I would say that he is the the charge. You know, he is leading the way because he is doing so much research and has so many studies, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But then there's also the sense of how to have a practice, you know, what to do when you take a class. Like, so my journey has been, you know, I do all these different things in the wellness industry and I love everything that I do. Okay, so I've been practicing yoga.
For 17 years, okay.
Oh, okay.
Great, great.
So I've been practicing yoga for a very long time. And I would say that my osteoporosis journey is two parts. Number one, I was diagnosed 11 years ago with osteoporosis, but I really didn't know what that meant. I'm being honest with you. I think the information has really exploded in the last 10 years. I don't know whether you think that that's correct as well, Irma. So even though I had it, the solution was Fosamax, and this is not about whether to go on drugs or any of that stuff. This is just about the yoga part. I decided not to go on Fosamax. I thought that my movement and the way that I lived and the way that I ate would be great. And, you know, I took a few scans, got a couple of recommendations that, yes, you should go on Fosamax. I didn't want to do it. I go see an endocrinologist 10 years later for something unrelated to osteoporosis, and I get a blood work that showed at very high levels of calcium, and hence this journey of finding out that I have severe osteoporosis. I have negative, well, I just had it redone. To my bone density at my worst in my spine is negative 5.2, okay? And in the rest of my body and my hips and everything, it's really just really above osteopenia. It's very interesting. It's a very interesting situation. So even when I was diagnosed again last year, I didn't know what it meant, you know, and I didn't know what to do with that information other than my doctor telling me that I have the bones of a 90-year-old woman, which didn't make me feel very good, and it was very scary, okay? So doing all the things that I did and do, I poured myself into reading and researching and, you know, trying to find answers like, you know, a lot of the things that Irma's helping everybody with, finding these answers with food and alkaline, acidity, you know, meat, not meat, you know, all the questions that come up. But my biggest question was, what do I do? Because I started doing a lot of reading and research into this one fact, and I have a good slide for you, Irma. You're going to be so happy for me. I'm going to show it in a little bit. And the thing that came up most consistently and is the most difficult to swallow is the idea that one should not be flexing at the spine, okay, with a rounded spine.
I need to, Denise, I know you're hearing this because this is near and dear to her heart. And you had mentioned yesterday how difficult it is for anyone to practice yoga to give this up. And I didn't realize the whole attachment in the morning. And I'm not being sarcastic, but it is. Right.
Yes. But, you know, as a yogi, we have to learn, you know, what is yoga about? It's much more. I'm going to see whether we can get to my slides. And so do I press share screen?
Yeah, we're going to do it that. We're going to do share screen.
Okay. And then I go to share screen at the bottom. Let me see. Oh, perfect.
Okay.
And then I have to find it,
your slide,
which is, here it is. And I click it. Oh, am I on? Is it there?
On. Make it big.
Okay, make it big.
And what I don't know, and maybe somebody else does, I don't know how to make this without a presentation. So we're going to work it.
Well, you know, this is my first rodeo with this, so I'll do the best I can.
So can you make it bigger?
Sure. I just don't know whether, I guess I can sort of.
Yeah, just make it larger. Oh, no.
Oh, that's too big, yes.
Right.
So you want me to make the whole thing bigger by just making it a full screen.
Yeah, but you see the little square in the bottom. Yeah, what is that? What does that do if you click that?
How's that?
Okay.
Oh, is that better?
Yeah.
Is it biggerish?
Sort of.
Hopefully. Can people see it? Tell me, I hope, because I can't see anything else now with the chatting. I picked this picture for a particular reason because I think that people have, I'm not going to use the word misconceptions, but people have ideas about what yoga is if they don't practice yoga. Okay, so this is my next slide of what I think yoga is. Oh, that's annoying. All right. Oh, I know what I'll do. Actually, you know what I'll do? I know how to get out of that. I just have to see what that is. I just have to go to my slideshow.
You see where it says play right there? Yeah.
I'm going to press this. Yes.
Yeah. Press that.
Perfect.
There's your
Yay.
Okay.
Oh, but now I don't want it to go. Oh, God. All right. So let me just go back.
Okay.
So this is my yoga. Here he is, my crazy dog, right? So yoga means a lot of things. But anyway, getting back to the forward folding thing, I would say that was, and for through the whole year has been a very big challenge for me. I heard it from yoga professionals, Marika Molnar, who is a well-known physical therapist in New York. She works with a lot of, with all the New York City ballet dancers. She has actually an osteoporosis class at her studio, West Side Dance. I took classes there for a while. I literally immersed myself in every possible thing that you can possibly do. Mm-hmm. And the literature kept on coming back. Do not forward fold. So I'll show a picture in a minute, but basically imagine that if you're bending down to pick something
Shelly,
up.
all of a sudden your sound went down. Okay.
Huh. Can you hear me now?
No. You've been muffled. Okay, speak again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Maybe it was just a whoosh. Okay. So that was the most conclusive evidence. And even though it was conclusive, I still questioned it beyond, okay? Like, you know, when Dr. McCormick did that talk, not the most recent one, but the other one, the one before the supplement talk, he did that whole talk, right? Yes. And I asked the question, what do you think about forward folding in yoga? Because I still wanted to hear it again. Even though I haven't been forward folding, I still needed to feel like, let me hear it one more time, please. And he said, every time that you forward fold, you're taking a risk to have a fracture. Okay.
So you heard that. You heard that.
Yes. But now I have to figure out how to, oh, here we go. If I can move forward to this one slide, which I'm going to show you why. Okay. So here's a picture. I couldn't get the whole thing, couldn't get the top. This would be proper forward. This would be a proper fold, folding at the hip, right? Mm-hmm. This is improper forward folding because you see how the spine is rounding?
Right.
Okay. And why is that a problem? That's the problem. Mm-hmm. Wedge fractures. So basically the anterior part of our spine, which is the inside part, right? The part that's closest to our organs and everything, gets shorter as we forward fold. Okay. So every time you forward fold, you can create this little bit of a wedge, right? And each time you do it more, that wedge becomes grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, etc., until you're left with a complete and utter fracture of your spine, right? So we're trying to avoid that, right? And who wouldn't want to avoid that? And to be quite honest with you, the thing that I really have delved into this year is that how many of us, in general, as we get older, do not stand up straight, right?
I want to say one thing here.
Okay.
I have been presenting this idea or asking this question of very experienced yogis.
Okay.
And and we talked about this last night, unless they really understand yoga for osteoporosis, they will say, no, it's good for you. So it's not. So the point that I want to make and the point that we discussed last night was that it's so vitally important to deal with a therapist or a yoga teacher or a Pilates teacher that knows about osteoporosis.
Absolutely. And that was one of my most biggest challenges, as we discussed, was the fact that, you know, I practice Iyengar yoga, and that is the basis of Dr. Fishman's work. Okay. And Mr. Iyengar, if you don't know, he's one of the great yogis of this century. You know, whether you practice it or not, his influence on yoga is monumental, and his whole idea is all about the alignment. And to be honest with you, in an Iyengar practice, one does not really round like just continuously. The problem in yoga is that half the practice is rounding. That's number one. The second part of the practice is that, which I've also mentioned, I have a slide on this, is that when you do yoga, that I don't know what kind of yoga this lady practices that asked the question, who said she'd been practicing,
Denise,
that,
yeah.
and Denise, you know, you might say to yourself, well, I don't have any fractures, so, you know, I have nothing to worry about. I don't have any fractures either that I don't know. I don't know. First of all, you don't always know that you have a wedge fracture. That's the other problem. I mean, it's kind of, you know, like when people say to me, how do you feel, Shelly? How does your osteoporosis feel? And I answer them, it's a silent disease. I have no idea how I feel, right? I mean, we don't know. So I don't know if I have a wedge fracture, right? I mean, I could get a very detailed x-ray. And even I had a conference call with Dr. McCormick, and he said to me, because we chatted, he says he thinks that I have one. Okay, you know, I don't know. There's nothing I can do about it anymore, but I certainly don't want to increase this. And once you get that, and, you know, we see that rounding of the spine, the whole idea of doing this yoga for osteoporosis and building the spine and the body so that it's as upright as can be, and we really work on this upper body strength, it's paramount to our health. I mean, you know, so when I got the information, I love forward folding. In my training with Dr. Fishman, I said to him, it's a very difficult thing because forward folding is just yummy. It just feels good for those of us who like to do it. I'm an ex-dancer. I mean, I love it. So his answer to me was, practice more Supta Padangusthasana, which I'll show you in a minute what that is. Just lying on your back, bringing your legs towards you, right? So just lifting one leg up at a time. I could show I might have a picture of it in the book, but, oh, let me see if I could find it. But it's a challenge. But, you know, and again, you know, you have to, everyone has to decide for themselves what's the right answer. You know, I'm not the osteoporosis, yoga for osteoporosis police, right? I'm presenting a picture that I think, based on my information, my knowledge, my own body, and everything that I do, that this makes sense to me. And his studies make sense. And to be quite honest with you, I mean, I'm, you know, very grateful that so far so good, you know, and there are things that we can control and there are things that we cannot control. And I prefer to take what I can control and not create that situation. And, you know, the other thing is I find that for people that love to forward fold, they're really good at bending at the hips, but they, like for me, I don't have as much flexibility in the back bending. So that's been a real learning curve for me. It's been really challenging. And I see it a lot in my students who round, you know, you lose that. You lose that strength and that importance of really pulling back here and lifting tall.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a slide? Do you have a slide on that?
Of what?
What you just said.
On what? Well, I have some of the, yeah. This is Supta Padangusthasana too. See how his leg is out to the side?
Mm-hmm.
But if his leg was straight up in the air, that would be Supta Padangusthasana 1, okay? Which just means, and you're just pulling the leg. And I have a lot to say about, I mean, again, I don't know what kind of yoga is being practiced. I can tell you that, as I said, I do mostly a Iyengar and you know, hatha practice. So, you know, it's about learning what to do. So again, these are some of the other don'ts, by the way: flexion, concavity, staying away from cat cows.
What?
Oh.
Hello. Didn't even think about that. The cat cows, yeah.
Yeah, so basically the problem in yoga is, like for me, right, yeah, because they don't do cat cows in Iyengar. They don't do that kind of stuff. You can do the cow, but you're not doing the cat, right? So when I take a class and they say do cat cows, I do neutral spine cow.
So the neutral spine, the cow is you're going down.
Yes, that's correct.
And
That's when you
the
have the
cat.
convexity.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
It's like, think of an angry cat, right?
Right.
Unstable poses, right? So for those of us who have very severe, like, I mean, you know, if you're a very practiced yogi, you know, and, you know, you're practicing whatever it is you're practicing off the wall, great. But for those of us that it's unstable, use a wall. That's what it's great for, you know. And poses, now this is interesting. So poses that can be unstable, shoulder stand, headstand, right? So, you know, for somebody who practices headstand very regularly, great. But then again, it's also not, and also shoulder stand and headstand are the two biggies. So you might have a great pose, right? But getting in and out of the pose is the challenge. Okay, so I personally right now I'm not doing shoulder stand, even though I can do it, because getting into the pose it's very hard to go into it with a complete. So shoulder stand is just sort of lifting your legs up right over the head. I don't know if I have a picture of it because it wasn't, you know, it's not part of the practice for him, but I think it might be at the end in my book. So here's a picture of it. I don't know if you probably can't really see it. Maybe you can.
No,
so
because
these are
the slideshow is up.
Oh, all right, good. All right, then don't worry about it. But in any event, so it's getting in and out of the poses too. So that's where you have to really, I know, and it's a lot of things to think about, right? And then there's the question of twisting. You know, that's always a biggie, right? Like, is twisting in general safe or is it not safe? Now, I haven't gone into the parts of, you know, Lauren's studies and stuff, but the premise with him is that when we twist, again, we first find what we call perfect, as best alignment as we can so that the spine is as upright as possible. Mm-hmm. Correct? Do you understand that?
Yes.
Do you need a slide of what an upright spine looks like?
If you have one that's handy, that would be nice.
Let's see. Let's see. I didn't all right. Use this. Oh, well, here's a twist, okay? Mm-hmm. Let me get to another twist because that's a really hard twist. Here again, alignment and effort, right? So you want to find the two. All right. Now let me go back to that twist. Okay, so this is, there are versions of it. I got cut off, improve my slide presentation next time. But so, every pose has and we are jumping around a little bit, but I think that that's okay because the questions are coming up. And every pose has a modification, okay? And even though there were just 3 modifications here for this pose, there's a trillion modifications for each person because everybody has a unique set of circumstances, right? Sometimes we have foot issues and ankle issues. Sometimes we have knee issues, shoulder issues, neck issues, right? There are lots of conditions. So, this is a very extreme pose, right? But this is a nice one, right? You do it at the wall. But the thing about a twist is you have to see how upright her spine is? Yeah. See how tall she is? Mm-hmm. So you find that first. That's A. And then B, then you begin to find your twist. And by doing that, you put incredible good pressure on the spine and the muscles, which create this pressure. And, according to what what Lauren is saying, is that it creates osteoblastic growth. It creates bone density growth and stability and strength. But if you just twerk the body around, then you run the risk of finding a fracture. So that's why Iyengar yoga is such a good practice for people.
Well, I think one of the things that's vitally important that you mentioned is getting into the upright position. So however one does it, whether or not you're bringing the sits bones together and you're feeling the earth or the heavens pulling you upward as your feet are on the ground. This is so important.
It really is.
Life, because as we just get on the computer and we compress,
totally,
that's what we want to avoid.
Absolutely. And I can honestly say to you that for the past year, while I've been going through this journey of teaching, is that all of my students, young and old, are all benefiting from this idea that we need to be upright first.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Mr. Iyengar has a very famous saying, and he says that he's really, I mean, he's really incredible. He's just was so prolific and such an amazing. If you look at any of his poses, you're just amazed. Especially if you know where he had tuberculosis and he was very ill as a child, and that's why he developed his practice. And he has this saying that you want to stand on your head, and you can't even stand on your own 2 feet.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, and it's true. And I tell that to my students all the time. Yoga, so these are some of the benefits, beneficial stress to bone. My thing is missing here, so I can't see my pictures. I'm missing both. Is that word compressed? I can't see
compression, yes, both compression,
okay.
yes.
And tensile, which stimulates bone growth. This is from one of his Lauren's books, or one of my trainings. A yoga practice is empowering physically and psychologically. It helps to develop good balance, which helps to prevent falls, and it can be adapted to any age and any level to have. And that these are all very, you read these things and you're like, okay, but really in and of itself, each one of these things
Mm-hmm.
are unbelievably powerful. And it's like people say, well, I weight train. These are the things that are going to come up, right? Like, I weight train every day. I've heard that that's very good for osteoporosis, and that one should be loading, right? Doing loading the body. And yes, we want to load the body, but it's the amount of time that we're loading the body for. So basically, with these poses, you're loading each pose for about 30 seconds to a minute. And in weight training, yoga has this amazing ability to work strength, flexibility, and balance, right? So, you might have an amazing squat, which is super great to have, and it's really important. But what happens when you get knocked over?
Mm-hmm.
You need that balance. I mean, I had that happen to me I'm, careful, but I was on the bus the other day getting off, and this guy had his legs stretched out, and I didn't even know. And I literally did like a oopsie, and I caught myself. And I think about all the times, like when I get off the ground sometimes, how grateful I am that I have the flexibility and the strength in my body to do these things. And, nowhere else are you going to find the complexity of the body as in yoga, so you finding, the hips straight, you're twisting, you're doing back, you're putting the body through so many different ways. And Lauren has studied 12 poses in particular, which we'll go through some of them, but now he's doing another 12 series, which I listened to his talk the other day, and it's really, really very exciting. It's because he realized that in the first set, they didn't really talk that much about wrist, bone density. So now they're addressing that more in the second set to sort of have poses that really work the wrist bone density.
Because that's typically what women break.
Well, it's not the number one. I forget the order. The order is, I believe it's spine, hip, wrist.
Okay, just from my own independent survey, people who come to me, they first hear about their osteoporosis through a broken wrist.
Interesting.
I wanted to raise one point that Denise said. She says she uses yoga to clear chakras, kundalini. And what's more important? Helping my stress, which helps my osteoporosis. So I think she's asking, is it more important to clear the stress through the kundalini and her chakra clearing, or doing the actual yoga? Or I think that's what her question is.
It's a good question. I mean, I'm all about the chakras. I mean, even though I practice Iyengar yoga, I have a very strong meditation practice. And, I've like 250 hours with a guy that spent, 7 years in a cave in India, and and it's really, I'm all about the whole practice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just about, and that's why I meant like that the poses are really important, but you have a choice. I mean, the pose, look, you can say, I want to do these 12 poses. I want to be part of a study. I don't want to be part of a study. I want to do the 12 poses. I want to see whether it can change my osteoporosis numbers. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He has proof of it. I have the information here. You can go to his site, and below that is the sciatica, which I can send to you, Irma, at another time, like later. That is the YouTube of the 12 poses. You can learn the 12 poses if you want to learn that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the idea, yes, of course we want to reduce our stress, but we need to figure out, personally for me, we need to figure out a balance between the two, because, I meditate every day. I do this, this very, very crazy, Ida Pingala, 30-minute meditation, and I like the Kundalini practice. And again, maybe, I'm not saying not to do it or to do it, but I do think that the evidence is really strong. So, there's certain things that are strong. It's like, okay, in the food world, Irma, okay? Like, there are a lot of things that we don't know, right? Like, there's a lot of, is coffee good? Is coffee bad? All these things come up every other day. There's a thing. Eggs were bad, now eggs are good. Is there, all these things are very questionable. But guess what? No one's ever questioning that processed foods are good for us. We know that
Well,
that
the food
is,
industry questions that.
well, true. Okay. All right. But, the rest of the universe is, so in the practice of yoga, to me, I want to control certain variables, but, I don't have, look, I don't know the whole story of this osteoporosis, what the numbers are. I just know for me that with a negative 5.2, like, believe me, when I first got diagnosed, I've been forward folding for the past 8 years, only in the past year that my back started bothering me, and I bought this book called Walk Tall, which was one of the first books I bought. It's on, it's a really great book. She's a PT, and she wrote this book about, it's for osteoporosis and back problems. And
Okay.
it's a very inexpensive, great source. And I have to tell you that I love her cues. I love her exercises. They work very well with my yoga practice. And, I'm just at the point now where I will take the heat. I'm not, because, and believe me, it means that I have to work so much harder. Believe me. It's nice to just melt into a pose, but I don't do it anymore. So I don't know if everybody knows who Lauren Fishman is. He wrote the book, Yoga. Not write the book. He did the studies. He's a rehabilitative doctor in New York City. He's with Columbia University. He's written over 60 papers on all sorts of back things, sciatica, degeneration of spine, every condition you can think of. And he has been studying people with osteoporosis. I don't, know why, how he got, what was his impetus for starting. When he was in college, he studied with Mr. Iyengar for about 3 years. And I think he was very taken with the practice. He's really an amazing yogi, considering. And, so he started doing these pilot studies, very small, and, having people do before and after bone density, with having a very strong practice, like doing this practice, let's say 5 days a week of doing 12 poses. And, found, I have some statistics, but basically found that the bone density, got better. And he's also boasts about this. And he told me this last year when I saw him. I really didn't even know what he was saying at the time, not knowing that I would be this person. He said to me that he even has people with over -5 who have not had a fracture. So he's worked with thousands of people, teaching people the poses, and not one person has had a fracture from this practice. So to me, that's a very big deal.
Mm-hmm.
You could find out more about his stuff. You can also sign up and be on his study. I mean, there are criteria. Like I am not, like last year, I'm in the middle of figuring out whether I have a parathyroid tumor. So I'm not up for the study right now until I get that cleared up. But it's really great. You meet with him, he goes over the poses, and then you can do that work.
So do you have the poses that we could take a look
I
at?
do. I just want to go through a couple of these things. Okay, the pluses, the don'ts we went through.
Wait, pluses has two S's?
Maybe that was me. That might have been a typo.
Pluses.
Is it? Maybe it does. I don't know. That might have been a typo. I'm not sure.
All right, sorry.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
It's okay. Don't stress me out, Irma.
Sorry.
Okay.
I misspell so often that it's like.
And also the other thing is like this little thing here, so maybe, if you like doing a faster paced practice, maybe instead of putting your arms all the way down to the ground, use blocks so that you aren't so, the ground is a little bit closer so you don't have to wound over. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, I can honestly tell you that, again, downward facing dog, it's a great pose. And that's the one thing about his book. I just want to mention this one thing in case anybody has his book, is that he made an error in the book. And this is a huge thing. The error is that he separates the poses into osteoporosis, osteopenia, and then the traditional pose. And those are incorrect labels. The labels really should be a beginner, an intermediate, and an advanced practitioner. So for example, in a downward facing dog, which is just like you're on your hands and your feet and you're in an upside down V, the osteoporosis version is having your hands at a wall and creating an L with your body. Well, I'm thinking to myself, I've been practicing downward facing dog. I have a really nice down dog and my spine is super elongated and I can't do it anymore. That really bummed me out. And I really believed that until I took the training. So I learned a lot in the training.
Wait, so what you're saying, if you have the osteoporosis, wait a minute, here comes a question from Denise. She says, exactly about down dog. Okay. And Lynn wanted to point out that Walk Tall is written by Sarah Meeks.
That's right.
Who has a DVD series. So exactly, how do you do down dog? Denise is asking, how do you do your down dog?
Oh, how do I do it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't want to become technical here, but hopefully everybody knows what child's pose is, okay? Which again is also can be a very rounded pose. So the way when I see, again, this is all based on different traditions, okay? So for example, in the Ashtanga tradition, right, it's a much shorter pose, right? But in Iyengar, because they really are interested in elongating the body and finding length, that's what's so great about the practice, is that when I come into my down dog from a very extended space of a child's pose, so my arms are really reaching forward and I can't reach them anymore, my butt and my sit bones are pulling back beyond, then I press up into my down dog, have a little bend in my knees, but I don't need a bend in my knees, but most people do, because guess what happens? When you don't bend your knees, I teach yoga, the back rounds all the time, and all the pressure goes onto the front of the hands. I mean, I've been teaching yoga for a long time. This is what I see. Okay.
So going back to child's pose, if in fact you're not flexible in your hamstrings and in your back, do you recommend having a block under your head?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Absolutely. Block under the head. Super, super great thing to do. And it's a really nice thing, because you don't want to be rounding. This is another place. It's a forward fold. I mean, that's really what it is. It is a forward fold, So you have to be very diligent in finding the extension of the spine. And I can honestly tell you that my classes, every class that I teach, I begin with doing 3 solid extensions of the spine. One from the Sarah Meeks book, then I move into Cobra pose, Shalabhasana, where the arms are up and the whole body comes up, Cobra pose. All these poses are super important. But then it's about working hard with oomph and vigor progressing yourself from basics to advanced, and having a professional evaluate your poses from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone needs to do that, including me. Tonight, I have a meeting with a woman who's in the program, that did the training, and we're going to go through the poses together, and we're going to make sure that we're pushing ourselves enough, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then moving in and out of the poses carefully and listening to your body.
Yeah, really good points.
So, with the down dog, it's like knees are like kneecaps pulling up, thighs pulling back, right? Strong, super strong. I can tell you when I did this training, by the way, I was so sore. I couldn't believe it. I thought I was working pretty hard. Okay, let me just go into this Wolf's Law. Let's see if I can move this. Oh, there we go. I can move you over. Sorry, Irma. Okay, so Wolf's Law is really, should I go through this a little bit, Irma? What do you think?
A little bit. So, yeah, let's just go through this quickly because I know I want to get to the poses before Catherine has to get off the phone.
Okay, so, the Wolf's Law.
She only has another minute, so.
Okay, so what does she want me to talk about?
Catherine, can you chat and let us know?
Does she know what the 12 poses are?
I'm not hearing from Catherine. She may have hopped off the phone.
These are the 12 poses here. Okay, I have both the Sanskrit and then the except for this one because I know the name of it. But these are the 12 poses that are in Lauren Fishman's DVD on that YouTube video, and then I have pictures of them as well. Okay. I personally need to warm up my body before I do anything. I don't just go into the poses. This is a really nice visual of, when people talk about the four corners of the feet, we've heard that instruction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard that instruction, Irma?
I have, yes.
Okay. So, the thing about yoga is it doesn't have to be yoga. It's really, for anyone should be thinking about the four corners of their feet to get maximum benefit of loading the leg properly, right? Because if you only have weight on this big toe ball mound, there's going to be an imbalance in your body. Mm-hmm. So we start with the inner heel, and then you move the energy to the little toe ball mound, to the big, sorry about that. And then you go to the big toe ball mound, and then you go to the outer heel. So it's almost like you create, and I can tell you that everybody who does this is like, they're like, wow, my legs are engaged.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about the effort, some practices are very flowy and they're, and it is about that energetic stuff, and I do love that whole energetic thing, but I do think that you can combine the two together.
Right. Okay.
Poses, tree pose, okay, different variations, right? So this would be the beginner pose, right? Can you see when I do that with my?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is a beginner pose, tree pose, right? And she's against a wall.
Mm-hmm.
She's against a wall too, right? And the leg doesn't have to come this high, by the way. You can have this foot down to your ankle,
right,
to your mid shin, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's a very practiced yogi, and then she's eventually she's going to bring her arms up and over the head. Okay. This is this pose, Supta Padangusthasana, but I don't know the English for this one. Sorry. Different variations. This is the beginner pose, right? I think most people can lie down on their backs. Personally, I've never met a person who can't. This would not be a good pose if you had a hip replacement. Okay. And then the other one is just with the legs straight up in the air. And so each of these poses does things. So it's not like these and he's not hanging out, by the way. He's not going, this feels so great. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. He is pulling. See, this is the whole thing about yoga. Let me just go back to this first pose, to the tree pose. So she looks like she's not doing much.
It does, right? Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's where the rubber hits the road, because she looks like she's doing nothing, but she's working her four corners of both of her feet. She's pulling this leg up, pulling the kneecap up into the hip. The hip is moving in. These two hips side by side are compressing together towards the midline. She's pulling up Mula Bandha, right? She's pulling up the sides of her body. She's finding external rotation of the leg, internal rotation, working very hard, and then eventually lifting the arms up and overhead with vigor and vim, so there's no looseness or laxity in any part of her body.
Well done.
And
well done, Shelly. Yeah,
thank you. So
very
that's what it's about, okay? This is a triangle pose, which a lot of people are familiar with. Again, it's about finding this length on both sides of the body, right? Because it is kind of a funny kind of a twist. It's a chest opener. You're loading the hip, you're loading the back, right? So each time you put load on the body, because that's what a lot of these yoga practices, I mean, I hate to say, like, they feel good, but are we engaging as much as we need to engage? And that's what yoga for osteoporosis is about. It's about engaging like crazy. Like I tell people, this is not your grandma's yoga. This is strong, powerful poses. This is Warrior 2, which is an amazing pose, balance, strength. Okay, she's working hard. She's pushing this back leg. This is where it's at, right here. Pushing her four corners into the ground, not easy. Pulling the leg up, finding external rotation of the hip, external rotation, right? Pulling up, stretching those arms not only out, but in at the same time, so you get that double action. And that's what's so great about yoga, and why yoga is different than other things, is that you're getting multiple actions at one time. And that's the power of yoga, really, at its best for osteoporosis. These are other variations. You know, maybe you don't get your leg to that point, you know. This is extended side angle. So it's like you're taking your warrior pose, and then you're bringing your hand either here. Some people just like to bring their elbow to their thigh. But I find that a lot of people in my class, I find that a lot of people love to hang there because it becomes very easy and comfortable. And then I progressed everybody, and I made them do this version or to a block. And they were all like, you know, growling at me, but they all did it, and they're all amazing. And I have to tell you that I've been teaching a very solid group of people for the past few months, and I've been teaching extension, working hard. And I have noticed with every single person in the class that their poses have changed dramatically. And there's no injuries. There's less of an injury chance, by the way, when the body is engaged than when it's not. Okay,
so Denise is asking.
Yes, Denise.
Denise is asking, so she can do, she's asking, can she do regular tree pose? She's been doing yoga for years. Now, we all have to be careful with the questions, because you don't know Denise's case. As far as her osteoporosis.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe she has negative 5.5 in her. But even still, I don't know whether Denise has Lauren's book, number one, which I would suggest get. Okay, good. There's really, I don't know your whole health history. You know, like, I don't know whether you have any, like, you know, hip issues or, you know, tree pose is a very safe pose.
Okay. That's what she wants to know, whether or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Tree pose is fine. But, you know, there are versions of tree poses where people like sort of create like this figure 4 on top of their thigh, and then they bend down and they think that's a version of tree pose. And in some place it is. Yeah. And that's where I wouldn't recommend doing that, because okay, fine, balance, you're super balanced, great. But it's about, you know, that bending forward, you know. Twisting is super strong. Lauren, I just saw him a few weeks ago. We went over all my stuff. He's recommending me twisting like crazy. Okay, so I have like
twisting is good if you know what you're doing, and if you're lifting your body up.
Yeah, you have to really, yeah, and do it very incrementally. Like, a lot of times I'll teach the idea that, like, you know, there's this idea that we go into different gates of the pose. So we go into, you know, you don't go from 0 to 1,000, right? So you go, you lift, you turn, you lift some more, you turn a little bit more. But each time you're progressing the pose to find the most, you know, the best ideal of alignment, grace, beauty of the pose.
Yes.
Let's see. This is another really good one. This is Sphinx pose, right? Again, it looks like he's doing nothing. He's working hard.
And this is Lauren Fishman doing this.
Yes, this is Lauren. He's amazing. I mean, when you meet him in person, he's like a really little guy. You've met him, so you know.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can't believe that this little guy can do these really strong poses. I mean, but again, he's been practicing for a very long time. And this is Carrie Owerko, I believe, who did a series with him on the second poses. And she's also amazing. Again, beautiful pose. This isn't where you're going to be, right? But again, see, she's doing the opposite action because everyone has that opposite action, which is that concavity. And these are some tips I just wrote, begin slowly, right? Rome wasn't built in a day. Really engage your muscles and progress. Don't stay in it, and become fascinated with every nuance of the pose.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm very obsessed. I'm all about the nuance because I find it the most interesting. That's what I love about yoga and what I love about Iyengar yoga in particular. There are a lot of warm-ups that one can do, okay? So starting with the four corners of the feet. Oh, and the one pose that I didn't put in there, I couldn't find a good picture of it, was Setu Bandha, which is a bridge pose. Super good, right? We know what bridge pose is?
Yeah, I do. I'm assuming
Okay.
that those on the call also do.
Yeah, I mean, bridge pose is something that people do in all aspects of exercise. You lie on your back and you bring your buttocks up into the ceiling. So there's the four corners of the feet. I can show everybody what the backpack is. I actually have my strap handy, strapping around the shoulders, finding a good Tadasana. This active rest idea comes from walk tall, just lying on the ground with the knees bent, feet on the ground, stretching the legs, arms overhead, just doing a little, like, getting in touch with your body. I really am I'm all about spending the first 10 to 15 minutes exploring my body in space and seeing where I am on any given day, because every day it's going to be different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every day, sometimes my back hurts me, so some days I spend a little bit of time in this active rest and letting my body really descend and relax into the space. And
Right.
that helps me. And then I can become very active, I like doing like pelvic clocks and really learning how to engage the belly. I do things like dead bugs. I don't know if you guys know what dead bugs are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lying on your back, your feet, let's say your feet are on the ground, your knees are bent, and then you lift your feet off the ground and you have your shins parallel to the ceiling and your thighs are parallel to the wall in front and behind you. You can put a block between your legs, between your shins, and you can just breathe in and out, like do 10 of those, and then you can take it into a twist. So you just sort of keep the dead bug and you just go side to side, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
So Denise is asking, what are pelvic clocks? And we only have a couple minutes left. So I wanted to ask if anybody has any questions or comments about whether or not
yes.
this was helpful. And while they're putting those in the chat rooms, I'd love to hear from everyone just whether or not this is landing for you. What is your takeaway?
And I just want to add this one little thing here.
Okay.
The consequences of osteoporosis, which we know. I mean, and it's like increased fractures, pain, fragility, and we know that the statistics are staggering. So basically, the thing that I've come to really learn and appreciate is that a lot of fractures come from falling, right? And a lot of fractures are coming from these wedge fracturing. This wedge fracture, I mean, a lot of the spines, right? I mean, there are the spontaneous fractures, I understand, but as we get older, people are falling and breaking things, and that's why yoga, again, to anything like this, that we can increase the stability of our bodies and to get stronger and more flexible helps.
Mm-hmm. So
Okay.
I can actually allow people to talk. So let me see if I could do this.
Denise,
Denise?
should I come out of this? I don't need to be on here, right?
Let's come out of the slideshow.
How do I do that?
I
Oh,
don't know.
I end the slideshow?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Now I gotta, let me just go out of this.
And then you stop sharing the screen.
Oh no.
What do you mean?
Stop. Oh, okay. Stop share. Oh, there we
There,
go.
there you go.
Okay.
So we did it. Denise, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Hi, Denise.
Yes.
How you doing?
I'm
So
great.
Denise is
very
asking.
helpful. Very helpful. I've been doing yoga for like 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So this was very helpful. Thank you very much.
And
You're welcome. I hope that.
I'm sorry. The pelvic clock is your question. Can you just describe that quickly for me?
Sure. I actually learned the pelvic clock in a Pilates training that I did, which I didn't mention, but I did a Pilates training. I'm all about my body. Believe me, my body is, I do everything that I do to be strong and healthy. And if I can't move and use my body, I'm toast.
Yeah,
Me too.
I know.
Me too.
So that's really the crucial thing. And, we all have a different balancing act. The pelvic clock, I learned, basically think of your navel, right, where your stomach navel is, as think of that area between your navel and your pubic bone and your two hip bones as a clock. Belly button, navel is 12 o'clock. Left hip bone is 3 o'clock. Pubic bone is 6 o'clock. Right hip bone is 9 o'clock. Okay, so what I teach people is bringing which not with a lot of doing, is just to imagine that you're bringing the 6 o'clock to the 12 o'clock, and then find the opposite. And I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, most people have the hardest time, what we call anterior tilting of the pelvis. Okay, there's posterior tilting. And can you see me, by the way?
I can, yes.
Okay. So posterior tilting of the pelvis means that the pelvis, the shape of your pelvis, is moving backwards, okay? And that's when you see all that rounding, right? And everyone's sort of hanging out, doing that pelvic thing. That's where most people live. And then there's the opposite where, where the people have like their butts sticking out, and they have like a big lordotic curve right at that thing. That's what we call anterior, and it moves when you're doing yoga, right? So it's all about finding your pelvis. I'm all about this. This is like super important to me. So for me to understand where your pelvis is, doing these pelvic clocks, just playing around with 3 to 9, 9 to, all the different places, you learn how to use your pelvis, right? And then when you start standing in your poses, it becomes pretty magical.
Okay, so Peg has raised her hand, so I'm going to, Peg, did you raise your hand, or did she put herself on mute? Peg, unmute. Peg, I think that you've muted yourself on your end. If you can unmute yourself, because your hand is raised, so perhaps you have a question. Okay, I can unmute Peg. So that was helpful. I want to know, is that on the floor that you're doing that pelvic clock?
Yes,
okay,
absolutely.
Great.
It's done lying on the ground. The props, things like blocks, in case anyone doesn't know what a block looks like, right? I have lots of blankets, right? Because, if you're uncomfortable, it's nice to put a blanket down. And then everyone needs a belt in their life. Everyone
needs a strap. Now, wait a minute. There's one new message here that I want to see. Oh, Peg is on the phone, but she's raising her hand. I'm going to see if I could get her to.
Oh, she's off of the mute.
Peg, can you talk? Okay. So what I'd like to say is, because of the time, only because of the time, that we are out of it. We're out of the time. It is after 1. This has been so incredibly helpful.
Thank you.
And people are saying, thank you very much. The pelvic clock was very helpful. So I am so grateful, Shelly, for you to give us the time and do your presentation. It was lovely.
Yeah, I just want to thank you. I just want to let everyone know. I mean, I'm doing a workshop in a month. I mean, it's almost filled up, believe it or not, but in the city. So if you're in the city and you want to learn more, I started a osteoporosis class in my apartment, right? So we have like about 5 or 6 gals on and off. So if you're interested in, learning, because there are a lot of nuances to learning how to do everything well, because that's the key, to be safe. I mean, that's the number one thing.
Well, most of my tribe members are not in this area, but there is one that is, and I have referred her to you, so perhaps they'll be able to listen to the recording and reach.
I hope so.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So I have to say goodbye for now, Shelley. Thank you very, very much. Great
job. You, Irma. Thank you very much. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Like a triangle, like not a rectangle.